welcome everyone to another episode of Taking the Bar, the show where local lawyers and lawmakers talk law and politics, tell us a little bit about themselves, all while we're having a drink at a local bar. Today's guest is Yamelisa Taveras. She is the founder of Unidos, a nonprofit organization that serves to improve the quality of life and of underserved and marginalized communities through education, safety, and social inclusion initiatives. She is a community activist, and she is currently running in the Democratic primary for the 14th State Senate District. Welcome, Yamelisa.
Thank you, Matt. So happy to be here.
It's a pleasure having you. And we today are taking over Bar 1838 in Downtown Allentown. We're at the Allentown Market, one of the newer establishment here. It's got a lot of great vendors, food and drink vendors. This 1838 is what I consider to be a hidden gem because it's kind of tucked away in the back of the market, off the beaten path, and it specializes in craft cocktails along with an extensive menu of craft and domestic beer and wine. The bar is actually named after the year that Allentown officially got its name, which was in 1838, and it was named after its founder, William Allen. We're here today with our one of the owners of Bar 1838 and also our bartender here today. His name is Manny. Manny, thank you for having us.
Matt, thank you. We're happy to have you.
And Manny, what are we having to drink today?
Okay, today we're having a Golden Stout. It's actually a local collaboration between two amazing local businesses. Funk out of Emmaus was kind enough to collaborate with Batch Micro Creamery, also here in the market. Batch Handcrafts ice cream, super premium ice cream. And what we did is we made a Golden Stout, and they infused our Cookie Monster ice cream with their concoction. It drinks like a stout. Looks a little bit different in color, more golden than a Guinness that you might be familiar with, but goes down like a stout. So very delicious. Hope you guys enjoy it, and we're happy to have you.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ready to try this?
All right, let's give this a try. Let's see.
Oh yeah,
wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
And what Manny did not mention is that Batch Microbrewery is actually one of his establishments as well. So Bar 1838 and Batch Micro Creamery down here in the marketplace. Manny's proprietor of both those places. So Yamelisa, before we get started with the tough questions, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So definitely thank you, Matt, for being here. That was really good, by the way. I am not a huge drinker, but this is absolutely amazing. So Yamelisa Taveras, I am super excited to be here to share a little bit about, where I came from, why I'm doing this. So today I'm here to speak a little bit about, like you said, me and my race for the District 14th State Senate. I grew up here in Allentown. I have been living here for about 24 years now. I went to Robb Middle School, graduated from William Allen High School. So as I'm hearing you share the story of the bar, I'm like, I've heard a little bit of that. William Allen High School. Here we are, as the town was named, after its founder. So, growing up here, living here, and serving the community that I'm looking to represent is already something that I've done. I mean, over the past 15 years, I have worked in the community in mental health, substance use disorder, and social services. And about 3 years ago, I founded my nonprofit, and it was really about really identifying the needs, hearing my community, and understanding, because I'm part of that community, the needs that exist, and the fact that many of those needs were not being served, especially for the Spanish-speaking population, but not exclusively. Ultimately, our nonprofit serves all communities. Same with my outpatient drug and alcohol facility. We are serving the entire community. However, all of our services are available in both Spanish and English because we have such a large population of Spanish-speaking individuals. So we want to make sure that the communities that we look to represent, we also are serving. So based on the needs that arise, we create those solutions that are actually long-lasting. And I mean, that's what I've been able to do, just in a brief nutshell. That's professionally what I've done here in the community.
Well, that's great, and it brings up a great first question for you, and that is the 22nd district. 22nd, correct?
I'm running for the 14th.
I'm sorry, I apologize. That was for somebody else. A question for somebody else. My apologies. The 14th district is comprised of a lot of very different municipalities. So you have parts of Allentown, which, as we know, is actually a majority Hispanic population. Is that correct?
Yes.
And yet you also have South Whitehall Township, Salisbury, Lehigh Township, and several other unique municipalities. So it's safe to say if you win, your constituency is going to have a lot of broad priorities,
Absolutely.
not necessarily the two municipalities having the same interests. So what kind of plans do you have, and what's your idea as to how you're going to kind of get all of those different points of view and opinions all working together on a strategy or plan that you have for them?
I mean, I think ultimately part of carrying out the service as, a civil servant, as someone that's into elected office, is understanding that through connecting with the community is how you're going to know how to better serve the community. So understanding that, I have areas of Fountain Hill, Salisbury, Emmaus, pretty much the entire city of Allentown. I mean, a very small portion isn't. And then it goes from there all the way out to Whitehall, Copley, Bath, Bushkill, Walnutport. It's going to these areas, connecting with the communities that live in these areas and finding out what is needed specifically for that. There cannot be a blanket servant. You cannot expect to, like you're saying, you know what I mean? You can't go into office and expect to be able to push legislation for this, the same way about farmlands that you're gonna do, you know what I mean, out in more of the rural areas, and expect it to apply for Center City Allentown. It's just not gonna work that way. So truly is getting to know the demographic, getting to know the cultures, the differences, the diversities that exist throughout the entire district, and truly having the desire, as I have and as I have shown, you know what I mean, throughout my entire professional life and ultimately my whole life, and connecting with people where they are at, where they would like to get, and assisting on bridging that, on making that happen in a more organic way. You know what I mean? It definitely sounds like, oh yeah, this is what I will do, this is what I would like to do. Ultimately, that's what I have been doing. And my goal is to continue to do that and carry that service, that message, that way of connecting with people from here locally, where I'm at now at a grassroots level, to Harrisburg, which is where I will be able to do as a senator for our area.
So what I hear you saying, which I think is different than a lot of what you will hear from a typical politician, and that is your typical politician will enter a race and they'll say, well, here's all the things I want to do. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and kind of expect that everyone who falls under their constituency, they're going to want that, right? What I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that while you have ideas and things that you think will be helpful for these various different communities, what you want to hear is from each individual group, how can I help you? Not necessarily, I think you all need this, and try to convince them that they need it. You're telling them, you tell me what you need, and let me see what I can do to help you. Is that fair to say?
That definitely sums it up. I mean, ultimately, it's understanding that there is a platform. I am pushing forth a platform when it comes to, Medicare, when it comes to investing in small businesses, when it comes to connecting with communities, when it comes to hearing the experts in those communities and bringing their message to Harrisburg. Speaking about substance use disorder, mental health. These are issues that are happening across the entire district. However, the way that they are to be addressed is what I believe is important, and connecting with the communities to be able to carry it out in the best way that those communities truly will benefit from my service.
Now you have two opponents in the Democratic primary. You have Tara Zirinsky and you have Nick Miller. Now, Tara's been on the Northampton County Council for several years. Nick Miller is on the Allentown School Board, if I'm correct. They're undoubtedly going to tout the fact that they have experience winning elections and that they know what it's like to be a public servant. Do you think that you're at a disadvantage because they've run races before and you haven't?
Absolutely not. Ultimately, I am running this race for my community. I am not running seeing it as I have opponents. Ultimately, I am running as a candidate for the community that I'm looking to represent. It is wonderful that other individuals that are running as well do have some experience as far as elected public service. However, I have a number of years, over 15 years of public service experience without the titles. And so, no, I don't see that as a disadvantage at all. Ultimately, like I said, I'm looking to serve my community. I am running for my community. Therefore, I don't see it as opponents. I see it as different options that the community has, and it will be up to them on May 17th to select who will they believe that will best represent their views and moving forward how they will best be served, coming from Harrisburg at the Senate level.
One thing I just have personal interest in, which I know we hadn't talked about as part of this interview, you were actually a guest of Susan Wild at the State of the Union address. Is that correct?
That is correct. 2020.
2020. What was that like?
Surreal. I mean, surreal. I think I got the call maybe 2-3 days prior, and they were like, by the way, you're going to the State of the Union. And I'm like the one with the president? What? And it was shocking. It was awesome. I got to go on the train. Actually, my brother and my cousin both came with me. And the reason why I was selected is because I have been a type 1 diabetic, insulin dependent, since the age of 10. So I have experienced what it's like to have to ration my insulin, to have to choose between buying insulin and being able to pay an electric bill. Once I moved out, graduated the Sales University with a dual bachelor's degree, I lived on my own. So I was working part-time, working full-time, and still not being able to afford my medication. And because I was working so much, I didn't meet the criteria according to the Department of Public Welfare to receive medical assistance, but my jobs weren't providing insurance either. So it's like that, being stuck in the middle and not really knowing how to make those ends meet that are life-sustaining. I mean, if I don't have insulin, I will die. And that's really the message. When individuals are on a life-sustaining medication, and there are so many individuals in the District 14 that are living paycheck to paycheck that cannot afford their medication, and truly being able to speak on that, being able to advocate for there to be access to medical care for individuals that their life depends on it. I mean, it was a beautiful experience. So being there, spending the entire day, going through the under tunnels, like all of the things that people talk about that you don't really get to experience when you visit the Capitol, all of that I got to live. I got to see that. I got to share that with our Congresswoman. And it was an absolute honor to be able to be there, to speak up, and then to listen to the president share his plans, and then both Senate and Congress, seeing everyone there. Like, you're sitting in a room where every single legislator at the federal level is sharing the same air with you. Like, it was a pretty cool experience. It really was. So I think anyone that gets to do that in the coming future, I know it hasn't happened since. That was actually the last in person where other individuals, or at least the full gallery was able to be invited in, was in 2020. Hopefully for the next year that will happen again. So whoever gets to be there, oh my gosh, like, they're gonna love it. They really are gonna love it.
That's amazing. That's a dream for me. So if you could put in a word for the president, Susan Wild, anyone who
I don't know that I have that much pull.
Okay. Well, if you win, that should be your number one priority, is getting me to the State of the Union, okay?
I hear you. Okay,
Great. All right,
got it.
perfect.
So we're gonna take the whole platform, just move it aside and say we're gonna get Matt to meet the president.
Yes, I think that's the right thing to do.
Fair enough.
Okay, great.
That's what we'll do.
All right, now here's a real tough question for you, and the reason I say it's tough is because this is something that's very, very new to the news. It is a wedge kind of issue, things that have been talked about right and left. The district attorney of Lehigh County announced about a week ago that he believes that he discovered fraud in voting with people who drop off mail-in ballots or absentee ballots at the drop boxes in Allentown. He claims that they have proof that there were more ballots dropped off than actual individuals who came to the polling place to drop off their ballot. And he announced that he is going to look at having detectives at the ballot boxes, and also having detectives review surveillance footage of people depositing ballots to see if any crimes are being committed. First of all, do you think that is voter intimidation? And if so, as a state senator, what could you do to stop that from happening?
Anything that prevents individuals that are struggling with mobility, that struggle with disabilities, or as I usually like to say, is with special abilities, it is voter oppression. Right now, if someone is handing their spouse or their caretaker their mail-in ballot because they're not able to walk it themselves, how is that fraud? You know what I mean? Please explain that. Ultimately, these are individuals that, I mean, if you send something in the mail, you can grab 15 letters, grab them, stamp them, hand them to someone, and that person can drop it at the post office for you. What's the difference if it's being dropped off? That's not an official polling place. It is a drop-off box for mail-in ballots, for absentee ballots. So ultimately, any person that is delivering that, as long as it's already sealed and that voter has privately, exercised their right, Anyone ultimately should be able to drop it off. But if we don't want to allow just anyone, that's fine. Then understand that there are going to be individuals like caretakers, spouses, individuals from the home that are just doing a favor. Because ultimately, yes, could that person have mailed it in? Possibly. However, right now, we are just a couple weeks away from election and mail-in ballots haven't even arrived in Lehigh County. They just started getting mailed out, earlier last week. So again, we are looking at that and understanding the delays that are in place for the USPS, our postal service. There are so many delays, and the ballot is expected to be there in the hands of the electoral, whoever, the whole office before 8 p.m. on election day. So in order to allow for that to happen, there may need to be at times that other individuals are the ones to deliver it. Not because they're the ones delivering the vote, they're not the ones writing the vote, they're literally just delivering the sealed envelope into the place that is expected to be delivered to.
Now, you mentioned making sure that information was presented in languages that people could understand. So a big Hispanic population in Allentown, obviously things should be in Spanish as well as English, which brings up an interesting point from, I think it was a year ago or two, where there was a movement to, there's the Allentown Charter actually requires that the city be English only. And I think all that means, though, is that everything has to be published in English, but not necessarily Spanish. Is that what your understanding of what the actual requirement is?
That's my understanding as well, but I think it limits the awareness of the fact that the population has changed. You know what I mean? When, 20, 30, 40 years ago, when these discussions were happening about making Allentown English only, it's understanding that Allentown wasn't English only ever. Like, we're talking about Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Dutch was probably one of the first languages spoken here outside of the native languages and the indigenous languages of the land. So it's understanding that Pennsylvania has a diverse group of individuals, has a huge populations from different areas, different countries that speak multiple languages. The United States doesn't even have an official language. Why should cities have an official language? That is harmful. That is oppressive. That keeps people from accessing information and resources that can potentially save their lives and truly positively impact and improve the economy of the area. If people are misinformed or, they don't have access to these resources, how would they know? How would they know how to proceed, how to do things appropriately? And then be criminalized for not knowing, yet they don't have access to the information. So ultimately that, whether it's because, the expectation is that publications from the city are expected to be in English, that has already been happening. From forming the 13 colonies all the way through now that we have the United States. Everything that gets put out by the government, by any entity, whether it's the Commonwealth, whether it's cities, whether it's, larger spaces or smaller spaces than that, townships, counties, etc., it's being done in English already. That doesn't need to be asked on top of that. What needs to be discussed is how to provide access to the other communities that live within that. Right now, the city of Allentown is over 50% Hispanic or Latino. Not saying that every single Hispanic or Latino only speaks Spanish. However, if it were about serving the Allentown community, then you should really consider the fact that the majority of the city is now Hispanic. Therefore, does that mean that it should be Spanish speaking only? Absolutely not. The purpose is to make it accessible for the people that, again, that you serve, that you are here to provide services to, that you are here to represent. So, in that conversation, it's, it's like a push and pull because it was on the ballot. That question was on the ballot, but it was very unclear. The way that the question was worded, the way that the explanation was provided. Most people, once they receive their ballot and they're sitting down, they're not able to just stop and walk over and ask questions about their ballot. They have to ask the questions prior. But if they have not seen the ballot, they don't know that those questions are going to be there.
And it seems to be a common thread, I don't know if you would agree with this, that anytime there's a referendum on a ballot, it's incredibly difficult to understand what the voter is actually being asked to vote for or against. And I assume it's because the lawyers get involved, which, yes, I'm a lawyer, and I would probably be the one to screw all of it up. But it seems like there's no really good way for a referendum to be worded that's going to satisfy everyone that, it can be voted on. Not to say that people didn't actually vote in favor of not eliminating the English-only issue, but it seems to be a bigger issue of what we're actually telling people is on the ballot, as opposed to, letting their voices actually be heard.
Yeah, and that's a big job that gets often forgotten. From the counties to the cities to the townships, educating voters on the importance of exercising their right, but also understanding what it is that they're doing. Like you're saying, it's clarifying questions prior to, letting them know, hey, by the way, these questions are going to be on the ballot. This is what it means if you put yes, this is what it means if you put no. And allowing them to make that choice. But if you don't provide that information, if you don't educate your voters, and you just expect them to go in there blindly, they're not going to know what they're choosing. They're not really going to know what they're voting for. And there may be some that go out of their ways to be educated on the different topics. But then again, you go on city websites or county websites to seek this information, even because you are a super voter, that you vote at every single election, every primary, every general, you're out there, you educate yourself prior to the election day. But for example, Spanish speaking, or those that are, that speak Arabic, they go on the website looking for this information to educate themselves, and it's not available in their language. So again, it's understanding the community that you serve, the information that needs to be put out there. And yes, clarifying that. Lawyers, wonderful. You're doing a great job for you and for your clients, but you're not doing it for the community. You know what I mean?
That's for sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You may be great at fighting for your client, but it's like in those moments when these questions are being created, it's not for one person. Like you're saying, it needs to be in very simple layman's terms. This is what we're asking you. This is what yes means. This is what no means. You select now, and give them the option after there is understanding and there's education that has been provided.
Yamelisa, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for coming. But before we go, do you have anything you want to promote, any charity, any kind of organization that you'd like to talk about? And if so, that's your camera right there.
So I just want to remind everyone that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think just keeping in mind, not just for yourself, but for your loved ones, please reach out. Please ask, how are people doing? When people say check on your strong friends, do that. And I did make a post, and you can actually look it up on my page. It's facebook.com/vote Yamelisa, and you'll be able to find it. It's checking in, doing a brief check-in, share it on your page, and have your family and your friends let you know how they're doing. The crisis lines for both Lehigh and Northampton County are on that post. Have them call, be available for them, be that ear, be that shoulder that they need to lean on, and be accessible. Sometimes we are not okay even if we appear that we're okay. So let's check in on our strong friends. Let's find out how people are doing, and let's provide that support.
Yamelisa Taveras, thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
Thank you, 14th Senate District. Sorry, 14th Senate District? Did I get that right? I'm sorry.
You did.
See, even I can't keep up with the maps. 14th Senate District, State Senate. Thank you to Bar 1838. Thank you to Manny. Also, thank you to Batch Micro Creamery. Thank you to Funk Brewing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing us to use your facility. Before we go, any opinions expressed here today are not the opinions of Bar 1838, not the opinions of Batch, not the opinions of Funk. These are simply the opinions of the interviewee. And thank you so much again. Everyone stay safe, don't drink and drive, and always tip your bartender. Thank you.